And that completely changes the narrative of the last few minutes, doesn't it?
Well, Danny Welbeck was a definite foul. Darmian catches him just beneath us here, and it was so frantic in the game that Arsenal were in a rush to get a goal that nobody actually even appealed. And we saw the replay on it, and it's a stonewall penalty. And the referee unfortunately missed it. You thought maybe he got up too quickly, didn't you?
Yeah, it's going to make me sound bad now. But well, you want to win a game. Yeah. You get brought down. He knows he's had contact. If you give the referee 2 or 3 or 4 seconds, sometimes they need that to digest it, and then they give it. The minute you jump up, they maybe think, oh, he's up because he doesn't think, or there wasn't the contact I thought there was. I think maybe you stayed up. I don't know. I mean, we have to congratulate his intentions of trying to get up and carrying on.
No, I think it would impact the thinking of a referee, wouldn't it?
I would have been screaming at him if I was on his team out there today. I'd been saying, "What are you getting up for? He's kicked you. Lay on the floor."
Rio's less bothered about saying it, obviously.
Yeah, I was trying to be diplomatic there.
Exactly.
I would have said it. In training even, I used to go, mad, if he's kicked you and we've got a penalty, it's a penalty, go down and stay down.
Frank makes a good point because it completes the picture, doesn't it, for the referee? Yeah. And it didn't go with the impact, the tackle. He's suddenly on his feet again. Oh, there couldn't have been a penalty, play on. And, yeah, maybe Danny Welbeck was too honest.
Let's go to Graham, actually. Genuine honesty from the players in here. So we need some more from you now, Graham. If you're a referee and you see a player hop back up on their feet that quickly, does it impact your decision?
Some referees it does and some it doesn't. To be honest with you, I used to be a gut feel penalty guy, so if I see it instantly, I'd give it. So whether he stays down, jumps up, I'm kind of going on the gut feel. For me on this decision, it's more about Simon Beck, who's the assistant who's looking straight at this, because Mariner's a distance away with not the best angle. And Simon's looking straight at it, the same view as I think you've got from your box, and he really should be helping him with that. He's done really well on offsides, but I think he could have helped Andre a lot more with that decision.
All right, thanks, Graham. OK, should we move this on then and talk about the rivalry, the classic rivalry between Arsenal and Manchester United? We've had a couple of fans talk about the moment that really stands out for them. Let's hear from Sophia and Mike first, and then we'll discuss it here in the studio.
My favourite game was the Battle of Old Trafford, where Van Nistelrooy dived, Vieira got sent off, he then missed the penalty, and then Keone gave him grief to his face. It was brilliant. I wish we had that kind of rivalry now.
Definitely Keane bossing Vieira in the Arsenal tunnel is another one. Absolutely stands out. But, the main one has got to be Giggs tearing Arsenal to pieces at Villa Park in the semi-final replay. That wave of Wizards one that absolutely tore them to pieces will always be the one, Ryan Giggs.
OK, well, let's have a look at the timeline of this rivalry between these two sides. And you were kind of at the very heart of all of this unfolding, weren't you, Martin, as you traded blows season after season?
Well, I think the first 7 seasons, they won 4 titles, we won 3. And really, they had a massive dominance, Manchester United. There was an aura. You didn't even get a penalty, never mind could score a goal at Old Trafford. For years, it became Fergie time. They were a power base in the game, and we had to change that big time. It was almost like there was propaganda as another force. And when we came head-to-head with them, if I looked around my dressing room, and I would often say, look around, you won't see better players. It'd taken me a lifetime to get to that level with those group of players, World Cup winners, tremendous play, with great ability. The head-to-head was great. It was what was done after that. We couldn't necessarily match. They had a spell over the rest of the Premier League because everybody was fearful of Manchester United. And we changed that dominance and we snatched it away from them. And let's not forget, '99, they won the treble, Manchester United. They've won everything. And then around that time, 2002, we sort of took it away from them, won the league there, went unbeaten. But the unbeaten, actually, I mean, was a disappointing season because Chelsea, Frank, I believe, was involved then. They beat us in the Champions League. We went out of the semi-final of the FA Cup. So you'll look back and feel that Arsenal really should have won more trophies in that period, but we were having to fight against what was an outstanding Manchester United team.
You must love to hear Martin talk like that, when he talks about a propaganda and a spell over the rest of the Premier League and Fergie time and all the other things that were created in the era that you were at Old Trafford. I mean, that's what you strive to be as a footballer, isn't it? Basically, psychologically breaking down other Premier League players so that here we are 20 years later and Martin can still recall those feelings in an instant. Job done.
Yeah, that is part of it, definitely, but I think it's... In that time, there was a period of transition as well, because the Man United team of the treble-winning team changed 2002-ish. I come to United, and it wasn't the dominance that had been before in '99, etc. Arsenal started to win a few trophies, and then I remember Sir Alex Ferguson saying to me, "Stick with it, I'll get this right." And he then created another team, and we won 4 championships on the bounce. And that dominance comes, and what happens is, that sense of fear does set through the league, because you stand in the tunnel. Frank would have felt it with his Chelsea team as well. You stand in that tunnel, and you look across the line, and you can see fear. You can sense it in the tunnel before you even kick the ball. In the warm-up, you can sense it around the stadium, and people anticipating their team getting beat.
I mean, we were playing Leicester, and they'd all be asking for Dennis Bergkamp's shirt before the game. And
you know you've won the game.
3 points. And I don't think I ever swapped shirts with any player.
They didn't want your shirt, did they?
Nobody wanted it. I used to keep them, give them to my brother.
You are a disgrace on this show.
He's out of order. He's totally out of order.
Did you ever feel fear in the tunnel looking across at someone else?
Well, fear against, worried about them? Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Which team?
The Barcelona team.
Yeah, they were quite good.
Nou Camp. It was fear every time we played them. But it was a respect as well. What I love about this rivalry here is personality. You know, like it's an era where you can remember the Roy Keane moment and Vieira going up against each other, players caring for the club. And of course, players care for the club these days. But that was a massive time, you know, of looking at people. You could see the dislike for each other. That's what we're here for.
I remember being in the change room. I remember Gary Neville coming and saying, like, someone's hit me or something. And then it just kind of got glossed over. And then we went out in the tunnel, and that tunnel at Highbury used to be tight. So it was like touch tight, us and them, straight away. Nothing in between, no space. You couldn't breathe really in there, could you? And then all of a sudden, I just heard a bit of a rumbling at the front, and Roy was just going bananas, going, pointing and everything. And I never really got a gist of what happened until after the game when we see the pictures. But I remember it just filtering down the line. Right, we go out there, we've run over these.
Did you nearly
get
swear?
The result? I did nearly swear,
yeah.
But it was said in a bit more
self-editing.
Yeah.
Well,
it was a tough game.
Let's go to the man who was at the front. I mean, you were a few bodies back, just having a little look. But right in the middle of all of this was Graham Poll. What are your memories of this, Graham? When did you first sort of start to realise that this wasn't going to be a usual pre-match lineup in the tunnel?
You knew straight away. I mean, I pressed the bell to get the teams out. They wouldn't come out. We knew it had followed Pizzagate, and there was going to be a tough game. The warm-ups, you could sense the players weren't their normal selves. It was tense. And certainly once I got the teams out, I went to walk down with Patrick Vieira to get him into the tunnel, and you go down that little chicane into down the steps down the old Highbury tunnel. And when I looked round next, Patrick had gone. Thierry Henry was next to me, and the next thing, as Rio said, you just hear this noise go up at the top of the tunnel. You think, what is that? And you just react to gut. I mean, I'm not trained to deal with stuff in a tunnel, and I just pushed my way up, very tight, getting past the players, and you could just see that Keane had arrived to save Gary Neville from Patrick Vieira, and that showed you that I think Man United were kind of more team-based. Patrick was left on his own, and I think that was a key moment in the whole match.
You'd left recently, hadn't you? And before that, you were telling us that you were a little bit of a sort of protector for Pat.
Well, I felt I needed to protect him because if you look, he got sent off. Yeah. Roddick sent him off. People would target him. Cantona came for him. There was one or two players that would actually go after him a little bit. And sorry, Di Canio, if you remember the Di Canio incident. So I felt one of us, Patrick, for us to win something was really key to what we need. So I needed to get in between and protect him a little bit. And I feel he was brought up on that tit for tat thing where it's a little bit like the playground, but you have to look and you have to bully each other, you know, protect each other and get around. I mean, that came in the early days with George Graham, when George Graham was saying that we were all too nice and we needed to get around their players. They were trying to influence the referee. I mean, I remember a penalty given to Manchester United against Middlesbrough back in the day, and the referee was just harangued, and he was frightened to give it. I mean, it was rare you got a penalty at Manchester United, and it was a case of challenging. It's not a good message to young kids, but you get round, you question every decision, and you battle for everything, and it starts in the tunnel.
But you must go on.
That happens. That becomes the DNA of a football club, I think, because it happens in training. You challenge the referee, challenge every decision. You try and sway referees' decisions in terms of the volume, the way you approach them. And I'm not condoning that, but it was just that the part of the way it was that no decision could go without you having a say on trying to sway a referee. And you'd be in a tunnel, you see the name of the referee on the paper, on the team sheet, and you'd think, all right, I know how to approach him. I know how to pressure him for a result. I know how far I can go. And we were talking before about it. It was an important part of the game. You don't really see it so much now because of the big respect campaigns, etc. So that's understandable.
How much from Roy Keane personally? Because I just think of Roy Keane when I think of that sort of spirit in there.
He was in training. He wasn't really like that, but you get to a game situation and he became a different animal. And he was so intense and he was so demanding. And the great thing about him as a captain, even when his powers were on the wane, he was so demanding of standards around the training ground and on the pitch during that 90 minutes. And if you didn't live up to the standards, he would tell you in no uncertain
You see now, don't you, they pick an all-time great Manchester United team and you ask other players to pick it. I don't know if he was that popular because he doesn't seem to get into many of the teams because he was, for me, their driving force. He was the one who wanted the ball, demanded it, in a different way to Patrick Vieira, who I felt was actually, pound for pound, and Man United fans won't agree, I thought Vieira was ahead of him. But Roy Keane he meant everything to. He was a real driver, great player by the way. Everything was two-touch, could score goals, and he was a big match winner for them.
The thing with Roy Keane is he influenced his other teammates. He demanded a 7 minimum out of players. The manager done it. Then he had his lieutenant on the pitch who would go out there and make sure he implemented that.
And going back to the incident, Graham, you've just heard the guys talking about influencing the referee or making sure that they put themselves in a position to get what they wanted from the game. When this started to kick off in the tunnel, you must have immediately not been worrying as much about what's happening in the tunnel and more about, how do I assert my authority so this doesn't carry on out there in front of the world's media?
Well, I was happy, once I got them onto the field of play and in front of the world's media, I was happy with my experience level to be able to control them. So, you know, the famous, I'm heard shouting, no more in here, take it out on the pitch. I just want to get them out there and then I can actually deal with it properly. Because in the tunnel, you can't, it's weird. And, you know, the guys were talking earlier about intimidation. When you're a new referee, you are intimidated. Don't be under any illusions. You go up to Old Trafford back in the day when Fergie was there, Sir Alex was there, it was scary. You knew you were in for a tough time. If you gave a decision that was 50-50, you would get battered. You would get battered by him, and that, I'm glad to say that doesn't happen anymore. There's, as you say, certain respect campaigns come in, but it was after you'd done them 10, 20 times that you stopped that intimidation. You were strong enough to do it. And, you know, once I went up before the game, up the tunnel at Old Trafford to see Alex and said to him, you know it's me today? And he said, yeah, I know what to expect. And it F all, basically, was what he expected from me. And I was happy with that because I said, that's what you're going to get. And we went out and we respected each other from that. Probably didn't like each other, but we respected each other.
How close in that incident did you get to sending either or both of them off?
Well,
before the game even started?
I was fully focused on getting them out. And then the fourth official, Rob Stiles, came to me and said, look, if you're going to take any disciplinary action, you've got to do it now. You can't start play. Once you've started, the moment's gone. And I said, well, technically I could send them both off, in which case we would replace them with substitutes and start 11 aside anyway. But I wanted those two characters on the field of play. Those two captains could help me in certain situations. The game was going to be tough enough as it was. And it might sound odd, but actually Roy Keane and Patrick Vieira helped referees in